My name is Pedro COF. I'm going to start with a quote from the article. This is okay. My topic is gun control. So I'm going to start with a quote from the article. This is a gun country by Laura Mijalko. Mexican drug traffic organizations are the largest providers of illicit drugs to the United States. They also grown to depend on advanced high-powered weapons and the use of the Navy military grade armament to maintain control over the smuggling corridors and local drug production areas. Cartels are also linked to nearly 40,000 deaths over the last 5 years. But this is like between 2006 and 2010. Many of which were committed when guns originated in the U.S. My main claim is the U.S. gun control policy has negative effects on Mexico's war on drugs. My secondary claims are the U.S. gun control policy facilitates arms to the cartels. My second point is the U.S. gun control policy has negative effects on Mexico's law enforcement. My next point is that the U.S. gun control policy harms Mexico's national security. Back to my first point, my first secondary claim. The U.S. gun control policy facilitates guns to the cartels. According to Laura Mijalko in her article, This is a Gun Country, Mexican drug cartels purchase firearms in the U.S., where there is greater access to weapons and more lenient regulation on sales. She also says that Arizona and Texas, along with California, hold the top 12 dealers that are allegedly arming the cartels. My next point is assault rifles and ammunition sales are monitored by the government. So the ATF or Bureau called tobacco and firearms and explosives officials are only permitted to inspect individual gun stores once a year without a warrant, because there are nearly 7,000 gun dealers along the border. Few stores are inspected even annually. Ammunition sales, which occur far more frequently than sales of weapons, are also generally monitored. My next point is any person can buy a gun with an identification. According to the article, This is a Gun Country, Arizona and Texas do not include provisions on registration or bans on assault weapons. For example, Arizona permits the sales of high-caliber assault rifles to American citizens who present an identification without requiring the dealer to report those sales to the government. Similarly, Texas law makes sales of handgun illegal only if the seller knowingly transfer a gun to a person who intends to use a weapon in a crime. So guns regulations in the border states ensure that citizens can own a weapon with very few restrictions. My secondary claim is that the U.S. gun control policy has negative effects on Mexico's law enforcement. The cartels use high-powered assault weapons. Mexico's drug cartels are widely thought to be fighting each other and the government with American guns. According to the ATF said that 90% of the weapons used by the cartels come from the U.S. For example, the Sierra cartels now employs RPG-7 rocket launchers, anti-tank missiles, grenades, submachine guns, and cap killers. A cap killer handgun is known for the potential to pierce bulletproof bears. The second point is that the rate of murders, execution, and kidnapping increase. According to Peter COF in his article Mexico's War on Drugs, he says drug-related violence has risen partly due to the cartel's ability to acquire high-powered weapons. It is estimated that over 50,000 people were killed in 2010 alone. He also said that Mexican law enforcement utilizes weapons far less advanced than the cartels, and it's often incapable of effectively responding to intense or gun violence. My last secondary claim is that the U.S. gun control policy harms Mexican national security. The ATF gun running program and Operation Fast and Furious According to Eric Edison in his article, Operation Gun Walker, Obama's ad for war against Mexico, he said that the Department of Justice and the ATF authorized the Operation Fast and Furious. This operation was intended to gather intelligence against the cartels, so the cartels could be taken out. So the ATF sold thousands of weapons to the cartels, and soon they lost control and tracked the gangs. The gangs that the ATF let go began showing in crime scenes in Mexico, and also second point is that the ATF e-trace program is not very effective in tracing gangs sold in the U.S. The ATF e-trace program is not very effective because the ATF is a small partner agency. According to Pedro COF in the article Mexico's Broken War, he said that the ATF has only 2,500 agents and 750 gun dealer inspectors who, with only 100 agents and 25 gun dealer inspectors assigned to the project are running and the e-trace program. He also said that the ATF is focused on building a database of gun registration numbers instead of trying to stop a flow of weapons to Mexico. In conclusion, the U.S. gun control policy has negative effects on Mexico's war on drugs because there are too many gun dealers along the border with easy access to guns. For example, the U.S. citizens can own a weapon with very few restrictions, and the security agency that is in charge of stopping the flow of guns to Mexico is selling the guns to the cartels.
All right, the proposition is labeled. There is a pretty good layout of the secondary issues. They're much more clearly signposted in the body of the speech, which I thought was helpful. I also thought at the end of the speech that the summary helps remind us of those points. And, I think that's important because sometimes your articulation is just a little bit different. You are saying the words in a slightly different way that we're familiar to listening to them. And if we don't get them repeated, if we don't get the ideas clear, I would have felt a little bit lost. But I frequently thought, just as I'm going, wait a second, what did he say? Because I was uncertain because of, a little bit of an accent. You repeated the claim, and that usually helped a great deal to make the argument make more sense. So that's a good way to kind of adjust for the audience when you have a little bit of a difference in the way you're articulating the sounds than we're used to listening to. I did hear several supporting pieces of information that you tended to give to support your points. A couple of the places I think you needed to have better information because it sounded a little conclusionary. You had very good examples with the sales, for instance, Fast and Furious, and you were talking about those programs having a problem. There was a statistic at one point that said 90% of the guns came from the United States. I think you need an explanation about where that statistic comes from because that's a pretty high estimate, and I'm not sure you'd find 90% of the guns in the United States come from the United States, so that seems like it's, an awfully high number, and I think you need to have a better explanation of that. I'm still trying to figure out where rocket launchers and grenades are available in those 7,000 gun dealers on the border, because that seems to be the information, the inference that's going on there. I know the cartels are definitely going overboard on arming themselves, but when you use that kind of information as an example, it makes it sound less and less like it's got something to do with the weak U.S. gun control than it does the intransigence of the gun cartels and their willingness to go all out in order to have greater firepower in this situation. And so I think that actually undermines your argument a little bit. All right, thank you.